Good afternoon, everybody. This is our VPO webinar series. This is our sixth webinar as part of a special COVID series that we've provided for companies that we know. And the title of this webinar is Using Strategic Portfolio Management to Plan, Manage, and Recover from COVID-19. So my name is Laura Nee. I will be serving as your host. I've been involved with the engineering and construction industry for over 20 years. And we're very pleased to have a guest speaker today to talk to you about strategic portfolio project management. Some logistics just to get started in the agenda of what we're going to be reviewing here today. You are going to be in listen-only mode for the majority of the meeting. So we ask that you ask questions by using the question feature within the Zoom control panel. And if you have questions along the way, please feel free to type them in the chat or the question method, and we will address questions as we go throughout with Dave, and then we can have a Q&A session at the end as well. We'll go through some introductions as to who we are, the Simplex group, and then Western Principles, who's going to be our guest speaker, Dave Jones, as well. We will be recording, or we are recording this webinar. So by registering for it, you will have access to it, and you can feel free to share it with other people within your company if need be. So as I mentioned, the main presentation for today's meeting is to talk about strategic portfolio management. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to ask them throughout the presentation. We do encourage you to make this an interactive session. And then if there's time permitting, we can have a Q&A session at the end. So without further ado, let me just explain to you who the Simplex Group is and a little bit about our company. We've been in business since 1984. We got our start as a reseller for Primavera, which is primarily known for their scheduling applications, now owned by Oracle, but worked with a lot of companies in the enterprise project management space. And in 2008, we developed our own project management solution for the engineering and construction industry to enable them to streamline review and approval processes on project document control from a project document control perspective. We then moved our application and deliver it now through Microsoft's cloud environment, Microsoft 365. And today we continue to support a variety of customers. We support really a lot of different types of companies involved with construction projects, including owner organizations, construction management firms, design firms, and contractors. And by having everybody work on a collaborative platform, they are able to streamline and make everybody on the project more productive. And this, as far as, what differentiates us from others in the industry, we are a role-based permissions type solution with customization. So most of our customers really like the idea of being able to take our best practices, which are our templates, and customizing them and making them their own. By implementing systems like this, it allows you to reduce the ultimate costs of the project. We heavily promote user adoption by providing Microsoft-based tools, and it lives in a secure cloud infrastructure hosted by Microsoft and provides a mobile application as well. So here's just a brief introduction to some of our customers. And like I said, we work with a lot of different types of companies, some well-known, some not well-known necessarily by name, but really we're very fortunate to work with a diverse group of customers who all, are focused on the application of engineering and construction, but utilize our software quite differently. So what I would like to do next is to introduce you to our speaker, Dave Jones. Dave has been in the industry as well. I don't want to speak for you, Dave, as far as how many years, but I know your company has at least been in business for 15 years. So how many years have you been involved with construction?
So I've been doing project management with Microsoft projects since one of the early versions of it, and a little bit of time with Oracle, helping with customers with P6 sales, and then back to Western Principles, working on Microsoft Project World.
So you've been around the block for many years as well.
Many.
And, we had the pleasure of meeting Dave through a Microsoft colleague of ours or peer of ours, but we've partnered together on customer projects with Dave's company's experience in Microsoft Project and the enterprise tools. But funny enough, it seems as though I keep running into ex Primavera people, which is how, our company and I specifically got started in the project management industry. So it's been nice to work with Dave. He has a kind of a great outlook on how companies can use software to really provide better insight and forecast capabilities to make sure that you're always on track with projects. So he's going to talk to us about tools specifically that can help our customers with strategic project portfolio management and brings a lot of expertise to the industry. So with that said, do you want to go ahead, Dave, and start sharing your presentation? And then, as I mentioned, there is a Q&A channel or button, I should say, on Zoom. So in the event that you have questions about Dave's presentation, feel free to ask questions and we'll address them as we go.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks for that introduction. We think this is a very important topic because everyone's trying to weather this COVID-19 storm and find a way out of it. And to that end, we do see maybe there's an end in sight here. I say that as all my children have been sent home from school at this point, so there may be in the background dog barking, etc. going on. I apologize for that in advance, but that's the thrills and spills of working from home. It does look like the end could be in sight, and somewhere in the foreseeable future, we can hopefully get out of this COVID-19 problem. But really, beyond COVID-19, to survive and thrive in this environment, we really need this ability to be resilient and agile. So it was just over a year ago now that we were all doing the business as usual, right? We were, in fact, working on putting another presentation together with VPO back at that time to talk about strategic planning. And then COVID-19 came along and crushed business as usual. And since then, our customers who are project and product focused have been working hard to get out from under the weight of this virus and get back to normal. And now what we see is that our customers are working hard to kick the impacts and the effects of COVID-19 and get back to this new business as usual, or as we all talked about it, this new normal. Many of our customers recognize that this new normal has to be better. COVID-19 won't be our last crisis. And in fact, in a world of accelerating globalization, we're only likely to see more impacts from crises like COVID-19, economic meltdowns, political failures, and more. And to that end, we hear our customers saying things like they need to be resilient, adaptive, agile, and of course, profitable and safe. This means that you need to do everything you can in your organization to do the right things. And within an organization, there's a lot of competing initiatives and challenges. And we know that any organization only has so much budget and capacity to do these things. And how do you know which are the right things to do? Pre-COVID-19, like over a year ago, we've all heard stats about the alarming rate of project failures. And some of that failure is built in before the project team even gets a chance to try to be successful. Something like 10 to 30% of projects are bad choices to start with, and they don't align with business strategies. They have too much risk. There just isn't enough budget to finish the work, and you don't even have the people to do the job. These are projects that should never have been attempted. To make sure that you're doing the right things, you need to address this triple constraint to answer the question about what should you do and how should you do it. So questions that you need to think about are, does it align with your business strategy? your human resources strategy, your IT strategy, your finance strategy, and other strategies. Do you have enough budget to do the work? And what can you do with what you've got? And then what if things change? What if you suddenly had $1 million or $10 million less in your budget? Or what if you suddenly had a windfall and magically you had 5 million more, which of course never happens. But what could you do and what should you do? And then finally, do you have enough people to actually do the work? To get your selected projects done, how many people are you going to need and where can you get them? And all of these decisions that you're making about which programs and projects to do all need to be considered while you're riding this crazy roller coaster with both simple economic and competitive pressures, and of course the occasional crazy and unexpected loop like another COVID-19 event perhaps. The modeling you need to do around your business strategy, budget, and capacity is complex on its own. But of course, you also need to take into account other factors that affect your business, like risks, locations, politics, regulatory impacts, and your supply chain. And all of these have been heavily impacted by COVID-19. Without a doubt, it's also important to do this planning as a continual cycle so that rather than having a complex one-off annual process to create your budget, you do this as continual planning. So what sort of tools do we see our companies or customers using to select projects? Some companies use capabilities in their ERP systems, and these are typically expensive and complex and the pure domain of the finance team. Some companies use purpose-built and standalone analysis tools, and many of these are good for single purpose areas within a business. For example, maybe they're good for facilities, but they're unusable for IT projects. They also don't allow for full analysis typically. So for example, because they aren't tied into your capacity planning and your active projects, you can't look at them carefully and say, which project should we be doing or which people do we need to do these? But these two categories are far and away exceeded by the number of companies who persist in trying to use Excel for this complex modeling. And none of these achieve the results you need to make sure you're doing the right things to successfully emerge from COVID-19. So there's a better way to ensure you're doing the right things, and that's with a strategic portfolio management solution that integrates tightly with your enterprise systems like your ERP and your work management systems, which could include Microsoft Project Online, P6, Azure DevOps, and more. The strategic portfolio management system must be a full cycle system, providing a strategic hub where you can document and track progress against your business strategies and use your strategies to select your programs and projects. You must also be able to track the progress of your project and program delivery against your strategy. Our recommendation for a strategic portfolio management solution, and what we'll show you a bit of today, is UMP360. UMP360 has developed their solution over many years. In fact, in an early iteration of their solution, it's actually the core of the portfolio management engine that's in Microsoft Project Online. UMP360 is made up of several modules, and you can buy those modules individually or as an enterprise solution. Gartner's recently released their first ever Magic Quadrant on strategic portfolio management, and they've recognized UMP360 as a leader in this space. UMP360 provides both top-down capabilities to drive strategy and resource plans down into programs and project selections, and then bottom-up, they can roll up the actual information from projects back into the UMP360 reporting solution. UMP360 provides full lifecycle support to your strategic portfolio management. And it starts up here with an electronic suggestion box where you can collect program and project proposals and key information about each. From there, you do some modeling and analysis. And you start looking at things like, does your proposal have strategic fit? And what are the risks? You look at how much will it cost, what the anticipated benefits are, and how many people will need to do the work. And this is a top-down approach. So we're not drilling down and creating all the projects and getting deep into the details, but we're looking at the high-level information about these projects. Finally, you also look at how the program will be done and how projects roll out of each. And this is all about building out relationships between projects and programs. Moving along in the process, it's time to select the programs and projects into your portfolio. And this is, of course, a critical step, because if you mess this up, you'll be selecting the wrong projects and putting your investments at risk. Once you've got your project selected, we head into the detailed project planning and management. And this is the job of the work management system like Microsoft Project Online. UMT 360 integrates with several work management systems to both push resource teams over to the planning system and also to report status back up for executive visibility of the portfolio. Finally, completing the cycle, UMT 360 provides you the ability to do benefits realization management so that you can track the results from your projects and programs against your business strategies. UMT 360 integrates with your project management systems, giving your project managers the ability to do the detailed planning and project execution as part of a continuous planning and delivery cycle. With UMT 360, you have the business processes and a solution in place to make sure you're doing the right things to drive business agility and resilience. And with your work management system, you'll be able to do your projects and programs the right way.
So Dave, just a quick question,
Sure.
what kinds of companies do you find using UMT 360?
What types, what kinds, what sizes?
What types of companies?
Yeah, so it's everything, honestly. The great thing about UMT 360, it's a very flexible tool. So we have companies that are, high-tech startup type firms that are looking at, we need to roadmap out and select the program lifecycle or product lifecycle. So we've got people like that using it. And then we've got on the other end of the spectrum, oil and gas companies that are using this for program management and making sure they're picking the right programs and projects. So it's everything from, the latest, greatest high-tech stuff to conservative, they know the way they're doing their business exactly, and everything in between, and all sizes, small things, very large things. So.
And companies looking across multiple projects, not a single project, but really more of a portfolio of projects.
Exactly, yeah. And not just the ability to look across, for example, just construction projects, right? But to look across the entire program, because maybe if you're putting in place a new, warehouse facility, you're also going to need to put in place Internet of Things devices to monitor the facility, and maybe, like a robotic supply chain management solution inside. So affecting a variety of different corners of the business as part of a program to make sure you deliver well.
And you find that most companies come from an Excel environment before they implement UMT 360 and dabble in the ERP and some other tools that doesn't combine all of it together.
100%. And it's often very entertaining to sit down with a big established company, and they sheepishly say, well, here's the Excel that we're using, and they're quite often a little bit embarrassed about that, but it's frankly, that's the way everybody does things today. It's rare that we actually bump into one of these companies using their ERP system or a standalone planning system. But universally, they all feel a lot of pain from doing it that way.
Well, and it doesn't really support a multi-user environment. It gets locked up, it gets copied, and macros get disabled.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, and then 6 months after you've set it up and you want to go back and do something different with it, it's too late. You start fresh from new spreadsheets.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I've flipped over here to UMT 360. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Got that, good. Okay, so what we're looking at here is this is actually UMT 360. These are several of the apps that are part of UMT 360. And what we've got today is it's resident inside Microsoft Project Online. For the purposes of doing a quicker demo, I've opened up a variety of these tabs above here in my browser just to get quickly among these different tools. But you can see here some of the portfolio tools like the strategy hub. We'll look at the programs and how programs are related together. We'll take a look at some of the resource planning, and then some of the dashboards. I guess portfolio optimization as well, and then the dashboards. So let's start on that little road trip here. This is going to open up my strategy hub. So here we are in the strategy hub, and what you can see in here, this is a place where it's a hub, obviously, where you can come and put in all of your business strategies, and you can use this to measure how am I performing towards these goals. So for example, I've got my accelerate product innovation here, and I'm just going to go in and we'll have a look at this and see what the results are, so I can look at my progress. But what we see underneath this objective is the ability to roll up different types of projects and programs and look at how am I performing. So I've got a target here, I've got my actuals, and then I'm showing my gap. And out on the right-hand side here, I'm showing my progress towards actually delivering on this objective. So these objectives here are actually showing up down inside my business projects and programs. So I can equate these things back and forth together and see how am I actually doing. And this is important because to be able to track our progress is the only way that we can say, am I becoming resilient and agile? So we can start that march towards driving those programs and projects. So that's the strategy hub. It's kind of a starting point for all of this. These strategies then break down into a variety of different programs. And in a traditional world, we think about kind of a bottom-up approach where I say, I need to build a project, and I'm going to build 5 projects, and I'm going to create something which is a program. And that's not really the way business works. So that was the way that portfolio management worked back in kind of the 2000 to 2010, 2015 era, as companies tried to figure out portfolio management. That's how systems were built. But what UMP 360 has found is that's not the way organizations work. The way truly organizations work is there's an executive team that says, here's our business strategies, and those drive out programs. And so a VP of operations or facilities might say, we are going to have to build a new plant, and let's create a set of projects behind that plant. So here's what we see here is these are the programs that have been set up, and underneath each of these programs, we have a set of projects. So as we go through our analysis, we're not actually looking at 5 or 6 projects that come together and analyzing those separately. We're looking at the analysis around our program and that having all the benefit that we need. So we'll look at this, just a few different pieces of the program to give you a flavor for what does it mean to build a program together. So let's look at our resource plan to start with. So as we put together one of these programs at the outset, you really don't know anything about it yet. You're starting to model, what are we trying to do here? And so the way the UMT 360 is built to work is we're going to come in here and we're going to say, let's look at this at a level. So I might look at this, maybe I'm just guessing at years right now and not looking at, how am I doing on a month-by-month basis or a week-by-week basis even. I'm just looking at years and full-time equivalents. And what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to come in and estimate that I'm going to need Alex, which might actually at this point in my planning wouldn't actually be a named resource, but might be a role. So how much of a sales and marketing person am I going to need for this project? And I say, well, 2021, I'm going to need a half FTE, and 2022, I'm going to need a quarter FTE. So I can start doing this at high level. And as the project gets built out, or as the program gets built out, I can drive right down into more detail. Now, this is integrated in with the project management system. So at some point where we say, yeah, this is going to become a project, and I push the resource team out to the project system, now the project system can communicate back to UMT 360. So you can see here, I get my actuals flowing back up to UMT 360. So now in a case where I've got perhaps multiple different project planning systems. So if I'm building out a warehouse, for example, in this case, or a plant, and I might have people using P6 and I might have people using Microsoft Project, I can boil that information back up to one level. So we go from our resource plan, we can drop down into our program benefits here, and we can start saying, how do our programs come together to provide me benefits? So in this case, what I'm looking at is not the individual projects, which I can get to from the roll-ups back here, but the overall program. And again, I can look at this in different levels and look at this in different detail level. Which is not going to open up for me.
And Dave, who do you see being hands-on at this level with the application? Who typically, enters this data?
Yeah, so often what it means is there's a change in the enterprise. So, at the outset, we would see something like a PMO organization spending a lot of time creating spreadsheets and trying to move data around, doing the old spreadsheet gymnastic type exercise. And that's really a loss of a lot of smart people, because filling in spreadsheets is not a good use of people. So instead, what we see is a transition from the PMO to being a true enterprise project or program management office, portfolio management office, where the responsibility falls to that type of an organization to start taking on this role of looking at how these things get modeled. We can drop down here into the roadmap, and the roadmap's pretty cool because what it does is it starts to break down how is this program built up. Now, this is just a demo, obviously, so I don't have a lot of data in here, and you'll note that we've got a Utah plant, and I've got the two projects in here aren't really a plant project. But what you can see is I can now start to look at what projects make up my program. And as we progress through this, how am I actually progressing? So we can see things in here, like if I click on this little icon, I've got 20 days variance on the start of my program. You can see over here, if I click on this little icon, I've got 0 days variance on this. And so I can start to look at how are things related together and how is my program actually progressing. It gives us a good visual, good visibility into what's happening. One other piece to this is the program status. So if we were in a typical PMO type organization and trying to be agile and responsive to put together a program report, it would be really hard to do because I'd be doing it with an Excel spreadsheet again and trying to pull together all of these results. Well, what UMT 360 does is provides me this dashboard where I can start pulling together information about what's happening in a single source of truth. So you can see all of the programs or projects in here that are making up my program, and I can see the status of those things just with simple indicators. And I can also dive into other information like what's my benefit status? How am I actually progressing towards getting this program done? And when will I start to see that return on investment? So that's what a program looks like. And then the question is, well, that's all interesting and well, but how do I get agile to be able to respond to different changes that are out there? And what we use for that is the portfolio manager. So we'll jump into the portfolio manager here. So this is another element of UMT 360, and this is the modeling tool. And what it's going to do is give us the ability to do what if analysis against a set of projects or a set of things in my backlog. So I'm coming into this, and what I see first of all is this dashboard, which is showing me where am I in my modeling. So this is my baseline. I've got 36 entities, and you can think of as an entity as a project, but it can also be a capability that I'm trying to get built out in my company. So less of a project, more of a maybe a culture shift almost. You can see my budget utilization, the total budget cost for my program portfolio, when my payback is coming, what type of strategic yield I've got. And the strategic yield is the scoring of all my projects built up together. So it's an arbitrary number, but it gives me something to measure against. My resource utilization, my budget benefit, and my return on investment. And if I just pick a couple of different scenarios here, let's look at what happens if I've done something in the background to reduce my my cost by 10%. So if my finance team comes along and says, that's all great and well, but reduce your cost, then I've run a scenario analysis and I can see from this dashboard what's happening. I've taken out 5 projects. So I had 36 here before, and now I've got 31. My strategic yield has actually gone up by 21.5, and my payback has come down. So I can see from this dashboard that I'm making some degree of difference as I do this analysis. Similar manner, I can go and I can look at my increasing my strategic yield by 8%, and we'll see what happens with that.
How long would it take you to do this in Excel?
Forever, right? And then you'd have math problems.
Yeah.
Like when you look at Excel sheets, it's something like 1 in 10 cells has a major math error in it.
I can believe that.
Doing that math, and it's a lot of errors in your assessments. So here we have this is my third little scenario here that I wanted to show you. And you can see my strategic yield has gone up, my payback's gone down, my budget has gone up, and my benefit has gone up. So how did I get there? This is all nice little dashboard, right? But how am I actually getting here? So what we do is we jump into the actual roadmap where I can start looking at moving things around. And here in the roadmap, what I'm showing at the top, I'll just close this down so we can see this a little better. Up at the top, I can see my entire portfolio of everything that I'm doing. Now I can filter this out so I'm showing fewer projects, but I can also go to my backlog. Over here in my backlog, I've got all of these projects that aren't making it right now. These things haven't been included, but I can take these and I can just simply bring them over here and drop them in, or just double click them and they'll go in. So I can get my projects in here and I can start thinking about, okay, well, what am I doing with my backlog and how am I actually managing these projects? And if I go up here, I can see some of my projects are showing relationships between them. And that's pretty cool because now what I can do is start looking at what's the impact of these projects as I move them around and where am I going to see those impacts? Well, I've got these 3 areas down here for my resources, my costs, and my benefits. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a little playing. I'm going to mess up my portfolio dramatically. So we're going to keep it easy. I'm just going to pick one of these things. And we're going to look at what's related to this. So I can say show related entities here. And in doing so, now we've just got these two projects that are in different portfolios, but they're related together. And you can see I've got this line in between here, joining them together. That's a relationship, right? And what I can do is I can grab this bar and I can move it around. And as I move it around, you can see down below my benefits line is moving and my cost line is moving. And if I open this guy up, so we're just looking at the costs, we can see that same thing happening. And with that relationship in here, as I drag this over, when I hit the point where I've got that relationship, it'll move both projects together. Okay. So this gives me the ability to start doing some pretty neat what if analysis around what if I move this project? How does it impact my resources, my costs, and my benefits? And then on top of that, what if I actually said, what if we don't do anything with this project? What if I take it out of here? So if I drop it or exclude it, I can take it right out of my analysis. And as I start to play with these things and move them around, we'll exclude that one. I can keep going back to my dashboard to see how that impacting my results. So you can see I played with this thing and, oh, I really hurt my strategic yield. My payback is looking pretty good, actually. It's gone down by 29 days, but
your benefit's not so good.
We're playing with multiple elements all at the same time. And it is a complex exercise. It's not for the faint of heart to sit down and just start playing with this thing. You have to really understand what are you doing as you sit at the controls. But there's a lot of capability in this to help you get agile and resilient to things like COVID-19. Because I can come in and I can sit down and I can play with this. The morning they came in last year on March 14th or whatever and said, everybody has to work at home. I could have come in and sat down on this and started moving things around right away. We have a couple of customers that we were working with at the time that we were showing this to because the interest went up pretty quickly in this type of tool. But they were also very busy as a transportation company, and they said, all we're trying to do right now is get customers from A to B. So we do have customers that, in that time, I guess probably about 9 to 10 months ago at this point, were just in pure survival mode. And they're coming back to us now and having more conversations about, all right, we see the light at the end of the tunnel. We need to be able to be ready for it. And we need to put in place a system like this to help us be more resilient and agile in the future.
We definitely saw it in construction. A lot of, state mandates and government mandates halted construction altogether. So there was a big gap for at least a month almost of, we can't work at the job sites, and that really impacted a lot of our customers as well. So to be able to see that impact on that program would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can start taking this sort of information as an owner with this type of stuff in your back pocket. You can start using this for saying things like, well, how is it actually impacting us, and showing it to your investment community to say, this is what's happening because of COVID-19.
Right.
Backing this is a set of reports. So I'll just show you 3 of these reports here quickly. Which of course were all loaded, preloaded, ready to go, but now they're refreshing. So give it a moment here, it'll refresh. So here's a portfolio report. So I can look at everything at this point in time by project manager, or if I wanted to look in different ways, different slicing and dicing, I can look at it by the program, for example. And I can start to see how is my program actually performing. So if I'm sitting in a PMO chair and trying to quickly crank out reports about what's happening with my programs, I can come over to this little dashboard real time. It's showing me what's happening on my projects. In a similar way, I've got this program portfolio overview, which is going to give us an analysis of how are we spending, how are we performing against our business strategies. So importance versus spend by business driver, for example. Number of programs by business driver as another example. And then finally, I can get my strategic planning dashboard here, which is just quite simply showing me strategic value in this case against the cost of the project, or maybe the importance of the project versus the spend. So out of the box, there's probably, I don't know, a dozen or more reports like this that help you get the information quickly out and really communicate with your executive about what's happening.
Does this integrate with Power BI, or can I use Power BI as as the reporting tool and dashboard type interactive report?
Absolutely. As part of being part of the Microsoft suite, or working in the Azure cloud, et cetera, all the reporting that's coming out of it in the background is Power BI.
Nice.
Okay, so that's a quick kind of dime tour of UMT 360 and its strategic portfolio management components. Let's just flip back over to the slides here.
And so how does it actually integrate with the scheduling applications?
Right, good question. So out of the box, UMT 360 is integrated with Project Online. So you basically just fire it up, pointed at Project Online, and away you go. Other scheduling applications like P6, which is more proprietary in nature, require a little bit more configuration to get it integrated. And it doesn't integrate quite as cleanly as Project Online does. So the back and forth information transfer is a little more complicated. And then, kind of pick your flavor of project management system. It has the ability to integrate into it and trade information back and forth. In the high-tech industries, we see a lot of Azure DevOps and Jira, and the integration there is pretty close to out of the box. There's more configuration, obviously, than with Project Online, but it's pretty straightforward.
And there's integration with ERP systems as well?
Yeah, for sure. And that's a really good story, because the ERP systems, especially when you start dealing with like an Oracle, can be and SAP, of course, very proprietary, very expensive to integrate with. And what UMT 360 has done, and they've got a very simple integration method. It's essentially just pulling reports and pushing them back up into UMT 360.
Yeah, okay.
Pretty straightforward.
And you could get like all your actuals from the ERP system and use that to compare your forecasts from your project management system.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and as part of a project lifecycle too, right, where you'd say, I've got my business strategy, and I need to kick these projects off inside a project management system, but you'll also probably need to kick them off inside your ERP system. So that level of integration over to your ERP system to say, hey, we're going to do this program and project, and you'll need to report on it.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's talk about what we went through in this demo today. So business recovery from COVID-19 and preparation for the next thing requires you to be resilient, adaptive, agile, profitable, and of course, safe. And to get there, you need to take into account your strategies, risks, costs, resources, and other factors. Programs and projects need to be aligned with your strategy, budget, capacity plans, and planning must be continuous. And your planning process can't just be an annual exercise. It's got to be something you're constantly doing to adjust your portfolio, eliminating failing projects, for example, and adding new projects that have a better match with your strategy and situation. And then finally, this needs to be supported with a full lifecycle and integrated solution with processes and technology. And UMT 360 supports the concept of this strategy hub and includes support for costs, benefits, and resources, and then integration to a variety of work management systems for the detailed planning and project execution. For your next steps, start by evaluating your ability to be resilient, adaptive, agile, profitable, and safe, and then make plans to improve on your strategic management capabilities. And of course, if you want to discuss your specific needs, reach out to us either directly or through Laura and the team at VPO.
So Dave, if somebody wants to implement this, or what is your implementation methodology? How long does it take? And, how do you get started?
Yeah, great question. So what we typically do is we'll start by putting together a roadmap with you. So we'll do an assessment of where you're at. And quite often we look at, for example, what's your maturity level as far as portfolio management goes. And from that, we put together a roadmap, and we really do take a crawl, walk, run approach. So we're not coming in and saying, hey, let's boil the ocean, let's do all of this at once. So the path to getting from, let's call it Excel spreadsheets to a true UMT 360 portfolio management process could take anywhere from 6 months to a couple of years even, depending on what you're doing. So I'll reference one of our customers today that's doing, it's a high-tech company. They're doing portfolio management, but today they're really bottom up. I mean, to the extent that a developer or somebody building part of the high-tech system that they've got might come along and say, oh, we need to, I don't know, change out a piece of the infrastructure in this thing. And that will make it into their product roadmap. And it's like, no, that's not part of a product roadmap. That's a fix you need to do. So we're working with them on how do we move them from being this bottom up project-driven organization or even task-driven organization to a strategic top-down organization. But we recognize it, and their executives recognize it. This isn't a one-stop thing. It's a journey, and it's going to take them a couple of years to get there.
I know from working with other enterprise applications, it's a cultural change. So you have to really be sensitive to that and prepare people for it as well.
Yeah, I mean, the cultural change is probably, it's bigger than anything. Like, we could actually do the technical implementation. We joke, if our customers left us alone, we could have the technical implementation done in a month or so, right? But
right.
Truly, the interaction with the customer, understanding their business processes and having them go through that journey of really understanding how do we change to be a better, more agile, more adept organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. That was a very good presentation. I'll go ahead and take control back, but at this time, we will also open up the question and answer session to anybody on the line. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A button in Zoom, and then we can ask Dave. And if you don't have any questions, then nobody minds ending a meeting a little early. You can get on to the next meeting. Okay, I don't see any questions, Dave. But if there are, and I know that you have a series of slides that we're going to send out to all the participants on the call as resource type information from Dave's presentation. But as Dave said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to him directly. And he's very knowledgeable and can, I'm sure, work with your organization to identify if this is the right solution for you. But we really appreciate you taking the time, Dave, to talk to our contacts. For those on the call or listening to the webinar, we have had previous webinars that are available on our website as well. The last several have been related to COVID type topics, very informative, very informational. And, I've enjoyed hosting those as well. So if you'd like to follow us on your favorite social media type of stream, please feel free. And I thank everybody for their time, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dave. Thank you.